You're now listening to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. Straightforward, no nonsense business advice. Completely unfiltered. Grow your business. Grow your life. Now, here's your host, Brian Fullerton.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. It's your host, Brian Fullerton, here hanging out with you guys today. Super excited about doing another episode. And guys, on this podcast, we have a special guest, actually. One of my friends, he is a YouTuber. He actually has a great job, great career as well. But some of you guys know of this guy, some of you guys don't. But we have none other than the man, JD, with Big Truck, Big RV YouTube channel. What's going on, JD? How you doing?
Hey, Brian, I appreciate you having me on your podcast. And I know we've been trying to schedule this for some time, but as you know, when you're diversifying what you do in multiple directions, time is the most valuable thing you have. And sometimes it just doesn't work out, but I'm glad we finally got it to work out. And I'm excited to be on this podcast with you.
Amen, dude. Well, that's the thing. A lot of people made commitments to being on the show in January, February, and I put together like my top 50, my top 100 list. And your name was right towards the top because we're good buds. We talk YouTube at least once a month. We've got to meet up actually in person at the Detroit Auto Show, which was just such a treat for me. And some of you guys even watched the 4-part video series we did from that show where I literally said, JD, take the truck or take the camera, talk about all the new trucks. And you are one of the most intelligent folks that I know that I get to learn from about trucks. So if you guys don't know, JD has a truck and RV channel. So we're going to talk about trucks on this podcast, but not in the terms of, hey, did you see the new, Lariat, 350? No. We're going to talk about some practical stuff, some tactical stuff, some X's and O's about weight ratings, load, half ton, 3/4 ton, when to upgrade. Now, JD is not a contractor in the lawn and landscape industry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in those cracks and those blanks, and JD can share his very technical, engineering, analytical approach to knowing about trucks. So JD, why don't you, for the folks that don't know you, why don't you take a minute or two, get these guys up to speed about your YouTube channel, maybe your career, your background, and then maybe what you're passionate about right now with your truck channel on YouTube.
Sure. So, I started a YouTube channel about, I had the channel for a long time, but it was really just to create content for some of the truck forums that I was a member of, because there's always questions on forums when people say things like, how do you install this? Or I need to change something. How do I do it? So I decided I would take a crack at making some videos and just post it for those specific folks that were looking for answers. And, what it eventually turned into was me filming more and more trucks, me filming more and more new vehicles on dealership lots, walking around and talking about some of the technical specs and why manufacturers do some of the things that they do when they design and build trucks.
Okay.
I pointed out a lot of information that I thought, people would want to know, because you look at your own truck, you wonder why something's done the way it is. You look at the differences between, how different manufacturers build their trucks, and you want to understand, well, what are the true differences between, a Chevy, a Ford, or even a Chevy and a GMC truck, where they're both, sharing the same General Motors parent company. So my goal was really just to give you more of that unbiased, unfiltered view of information related to trucks and how they were designed.
Absolutely.
And what a lot of people don't realize is as big as my channel has grown on the RV side, it started off as a truck review channel, and it migrated into RVs as I decided that, I wanted to expand the scope of my channel. Okay. Now, I would say it's about 75% RV related and 25% truck related.
Okay.
So when you watch my channel, it's really tailored more towards towing, safely towing, as well as expanding beyond your traditional RV towing. So I've done several segments with dump trailers. I've done several segments with flatbed tilt trailers. I've worked with some manufacturers to produce some content on why trailers are designed and built the way they are, some of the differences between types of trailers. So the goal of my channel, even though it leans heavy on the RV side, is really to talk more about towing safety in general and accessories that can help you tow safer. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, people say that, it's my life, it's my trailer, it's, I want to do what I want to do as long as I'm doing it in a way that I feel safe. Well, the problem is what about all the other people you share the road with? And that's a big part of my channel, is just to make sure and set the right expectations on if you're going to tow safely, what you should try to do, some of the things you should keep an eye out on. Now,
Absolutely.
In terms of my background, I've been an engineer for quite a while. I really like to feel that my specialty has been more towards the fleet side because I've done a lot of engineering work specifically related to fleet analytics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but the whole point is that my engineering career side has definitely aligned me with the topics that I talk about on my YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
It's one of those things that it was kind of a natural progression. Part of my job is to explain to people in a very non-technical way, very technical topics. So that's how I try to translate the message in my channel. I don't ever want to explain something to somebody in a video that they have to then scour Google to try to figure out what I was talking about. I like to explain it in a way that people can understand it, that it is, at a level that they can say, wow, I can digest that information. It makes sense to me. And it was explained to me in a way that it never has been in the past, because it's great to have, technology as part of our life and understand that there are engineers and there are designers in the background that are producing things. But if you don't understand specifically why and how it applies to you, then it's all just jargon. And I want to try to filter through some of that.
No, dude, for sure. I mean, honestly, I'm one of your biggest fans, bro. I mean, not just because I have you on the podcast, but like seriously, I grew up watching your channel. I mean, the last 3-4 years, I've watched you go from, I probably found your channel. You were probably maybe at like 75 to 100,000, maybe like 125. I might have been at 15 to 25,000 subs. I don't know, something like that. Whatever it was, I just remember the way I found you is I was looking about Super Duties and F-250s. And so this was, I've had my truck for 3 years now. And when I was looking for F-250 reviews and gas versus diesel, Lariat versus XL, XLT versus this, the different trims, the lights, the running lights on top, tow capacity, right? All this stuff. Well, you had a brand new was it 450 or the 350 back then? Was it a 450?
I don't know which one I had back then. It could have been a 350 or 450.
I think you had the ruby red or the red one, but it wasn't the new. I think you had a 350 because it's
the one. Yeah. So
is that what it was?
I started off with a white 450. Well, I started making more content when we had our 450, but I had a 250 before that. Then I had a white F450 Platinum. Moved to a gold or white gold F350 dually with the new body style. I only had that for about a month, and then I traded in for a ruby red F450 King Ranch, which I have now.
Yeah, that's what I found. That's when I found you. I think you might have even only had that thing for about a month or so, because it was like a brand new truck, and not too many guys had the new IllumiDuty. And so I was like, well, this is like a pretty cool dude, pretty cool show. And not only that, dude, I mean, it's funny because I'm a big like outdoor guy. Like I love camping. I love RVs. And so we've actually been able to grow a pretty cool friendship talking about a little bit of both, right? Trucks and RVs. Like who doesn't like talking about this stuff, right? Well, let's do this. I want to break a couple things down while I got you. We're probably going to do a quick episode here because I got to get going this afternoon myself. But I also don't want to take too much of JD's afternoon. It's we're actually doing this on Sunday. So a lot of us trying to rest and just chill out on the weekend. But when you create content for a living, JD, you know how it goes, man. You got to get in where you fit in, right? So,
oh yeah.
So let's do this. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from our show sponsors, and then we're going to get right back into hearing a little bit more from JD.
Battery power made by Stihl. From trimmers and mowers to chainsaws and blowers, Stihl battery tools are exactly what you need to tackle your to-do list. Whether you need to maintain your yard or completely transform your landscape. Battery power made by Stihl. Stihl is not sold at Lowe's or the Home Depot, always at a local Stihl dealer. Real Stihl. Find yours at StihlDealers.com. Lowe's and the Home Depot are trademarks of their respective companies.
And before we cut back to Brian, let me encourage you to visit Stihl on Facebook. Go to their official page, scroll down just a little to find a post about the Stihl Hedge Trimmer Product Selector. This is a great diagnostic tool just to find the right tool for the job. It's very simple. You answer a few questions. It narrows down your choices. I actually showed this to my wife, Martha, and now it looks like I'm buying some new equipment and trimming the bushes after today's show. Now more of Fullerton Unfiltered. with your host and star of the show, Brian Fullerton.
Awesome, guys. Well, cool deal. We'll always appreciate our show sponsors and those guys backing up the show. And again, thank you so much to those guys for keeping the lights on here, allowing us to bring this content to you guys. And again, whether it's a Brian's 10 affiliate code that helps you guys save some money and we earn a small commission, or just some of the bigger sponsors that we have access to, definitely support those guys. It goes a long way to keeping the lights on and bringing you guys this great content. So, well, JD, let's go back to you. So when we were talking about just spitballing some ideas before we hit record, I wanted to ask you the two big ones I get, and maybe we can get you on the show and do a couple different episodes of this. But the two big ones I get are gas versus diesel. And then the other one I wanted to talk about was towing, hauling, not, redlining your truck and setup. That's two big things I see a lot in my niche and my industry. Now, again, we're talking lawn care landscapers, right? And you're a big truck guy, so you can help us maybe understand a little bit more from an engineering standpoint, why to do certain things and why not to do certain things. So the first one I want to talk about, and we don't have a script here, but it's gas versus diesel, man. And a lot of guys, you get the diesel boys, the diesel fanboys, and they'll go to their grave saying diesel or die, right? And then the other camp is the guys that have gas trucks, right? Now, my F-250 Lariat, it's a gasser. So my attitude was, well, and I learned this from you, and this might be able to be a good volley for you, is that I learned from you that unless I'm going to be driving this diesel, 400,000 miles, that I might not have an ROI on that diesel engine. And I'm also not hauling heavy regularly, so I don't really know if I needed that diesel engine. So I, after learning from your videos, kind of opted for that gas engine. So what's your perspective on this whole topic about gas versus diesel? Is that some of the things that you tell your subscribers and fans to evaluate, or how can you help these guys make a decision about which engine to go for their next truck?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's definitely a controversial one because people are very much in the camp of defending what they have most experience with.
Sure.
Oftentimes, it comes down to, if I had a great experience with a diesel engine and it's performed the job well, then I'm going to be a diesel fan. Oftentimes, if you're a gas owner, that's all you've ever owned, and you don't really have the feeling like you need to move into a diesel, well, you'll defend gas. And it's even the exact same scenario when it comes to trucks. So if you are, an F-150 owner or a Ram 1500 owner, and that's all you've driven, and it's been a super reliable vehicle for you, and you've been using it for everything, you've beaten it up, and it's great. Your next truck may be that simply because that's all you know, and you've never had an issue with it, so you don't have any real reason to change.
Right.
ROI is, and for people who don't understand, return on investment is essentially the product that you buy, whether it's a consumable product, whether it's a personal product or a commercial product, and you spend money on it or you spend resources on it, you want to get some type of return in exchange for that, right? I always tell people, if you buy a mechanical pen or a pencil and, you spend your money on that, the goal is that you can use it to write. And if it can't write for you, it's not creating any return on investment. Now, if you use it to write a check, then it's creating either a lot or very little. So the whole goal of anything you buy in your life, whether it's food, whether it's something from Walmart, whether it's a piece of paper, the goal is that you're going to get more out of it than you spent on it. And the reality with trucks and engines, it's all really the same. You have a perceived ROI, what you think you should be getting out of it, and then you have an actual ROI, and that's what you really are getting out of it.
Sure.
Most people base purchasing decisions on a perceived ROI. I'm going to buy this because I'm going to use it for that. On the YouTube side, we spend tons of money on cameras and gear and recording software and stuff like that, thinking that this is going to be our next step into creating motion pictures on our YouTube channel, realizing that, we probably use 20% of it, and you tend to fall back on the easiest stuff. So when you talk gas versus diesel, the first thing is you have to get those biases out of the way. You have to understand that if I'm looking at using it for a business, I need to understand which one is practically going to be best for me. Everybody for the most part, believes that if I get a diesel truck, I'm going to have the most powerful engine. I'm going to have better towing. I'm probably going to have slightly better fuel economy when I'm towing. Arguably, it should be more reliable unless I get, an old Power Stroke that was a piece of crap, or unless I get a truck that has a great engine but a really horrible shell around it. And that was the perception of Ram trucks in the past, was I'm going to get this phenomenal Cummins diesel engine, but the truck itself is going to fall apart around me.
Sure.
And with Ford, it was the opposite. I'm going to get this great shell, but this Power Stroke diesel engine's a piece of junk, and it's going to fall apart on me. So, when you get the perception out of the way and you clear the slate, and you go ahead and admit to yourself that all modern diesel engines are pretty dang great, you have to then realize, what am I going to be using it for? In a business, you see a lot of fleets that are moving away from diesels, and they're going with the gas option simply because they feel it's a lower service cost over the life of that vehicle. They find that, we have less failures. We don't have to worry about diesel exhaust fluid. We don't have to worry about EGR sensors and other parts that potentially could fail under normal driving when they're not towing heavy trailers.
Okay.
When you look at fleets that still have a large amount of diesels, typically they have those for towing heavy, or because they're going to be using it that in a fashion that a diesel engine is going to provide them better value or just overall better reliability. If you're doing heavy towing, and when I say heavy towing, and let's specifically talk about 3/4 ton and up trucks, because we can get into the half-ton diesels, we can get into the half-ton gases, and then the half-ton turbocharged, 4 cylinders and V6s, or even hybrids. But the fact is, half-ton trucks are designed to be good on fuel, at the same time provide you decent towing numbers, but primarily in a consumer type environment, in a non-commercial use environment. Most of them have about 150,000 mile service life from the manufacturer. So I don't really want to focus on those. So let's talk about 3/4 ton trucks and up.
Yeah.
When you're looking at diesel versus gas, the question you really have to ask yourself, or the questions you have to ask yourself, are going to be related to how often are you going to be towing? Are you going to be towing up or down grade? Basically, are you going uphill or downhill? Do you go through mountain passes a lot? And how much of that time is going to be the combination of towing heavy? So if you are just going to be driving your truck, it doesn't matter if you're going uphill or downhill, having a gas or diesel engine from any of the manufacturers is going to be able to accomplish that without any type of an issue.
Gotcha.
The question you ultimately need to then add to it is, if I'm going to be hauling a trailer, specifically trailers that weigh about 10,000 pounds and up, where am I going to want to go in terms of engines? And typically a diesel engine is going to do several things for you if you plan on hauling that size and weight of trailer quite a bit. If you're going up hills, if you're going down hills, having a more powerful, torquey diesel engine is going to provide you better fuel economy. It's going to provide you more torque, and it's going to apply it to the ground better if you're going uphill than a gas engine. And if you're going downhill, having a diesel exhaust brake or having a braking system that doesn't put so much reliance on your transmission or the physical brakes on your vehicle is going to be a benefit whenever you're coming downhill. That way, if you are a hot shotter, if you are moving commercial loads a lot, a diesel engine is really going to be the better option for you. Most of your diesel engines in commercial vehicles are going to have generally about a 200 to 250,000 mile service life. And that's just what the manufacturer sets, right? There's folks that have over 1 million miles on their diesel vehicles because they take care of it and they replace things. But when I say service life, I mean they should go that long before requiring any major service.
Okay.
That's what the manufacturers mean when they say service life. So let's compare and contrast this to 15 years ago. If you had a truck from 15, 20 years ago at 60 to 75,000 miles, you were generally required to do some type of major service on the vehicle. Generally, the alternator may go out, your power steering pump may go out, you may have an issue with injectors, you may have a belt or a chain issue. Things had to be done at that mileage range. And when I say vehicles are so much more reliable than they've ever been, now on those lighter duty vehicles, they've bumped that to generally about 150,000 miles before you can expect any major service to be performed.
Okay.
Of course, you could have a one-off vehicle or a vehicle that just has problems, which, that happens, and it happens to a fair percentage of vehicles on the road where something will fail before that point. But typically 150,000 miles is what you should expect to get out of a modern light-duty vehicle before any type of major service needs to be done to it. Major service being a component needing to be replaced. On your heavy-duty light-duty vehicles, a heavy-duty being a 3/4 ton and up truck, it bumps all the way up to about 225 to 250,000 miles before they expect any major component to fail on that vehicle.
For a gas or for a diesel?
For either.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool deal.
So so you're seeing vehicles that are far more reliable overall hit the market. The number one complaint you get now are electronic technology related, because those things can always have issues. But jumping back to your original question, gas versus diesel, it all ultimately comes down to how you use the vehicle. I would say 99.9% of the time, folks that are in the service industry that isn't specifically tailored towards moving cargo would be fine with the new modern gas engine. Whatever brand you look at, whether it's the Ram, whether it's a Ford, or whether it's a General Motors gas engine, they have come such a long way in producing engines that are just very strong, very reliable, so long as you're not going to be putting something excessively heavy behind the truck.
Well, let me ask you about this too. When you mean excessively heavy, or you mean hauling cargo, so we're talking contractors, right? And specifically lawn and landscapers. So you're saying like hauling pallets of bricks and pavers, hauling a cat or a skid loader, right? Obviously you have a background with BTBRV, big truck, big RV. So like maybe guys one day they want to use that work truck for personal use and drive their camper, 4 hours wherever up north, or, wherever they go for, some family time. So for me right now, I have a gas engine because I don't haul heavy. I don't do anything more than plow snow. My plow truck has been able to, move 18 inches of wet, slushy snow. No problem with that big Boss, blade. But, I will admit that long term, I might want a diesel, because it depends when my wife and I, if we have 2 or 3 kids, 5, 7, 8 years from now, and they're, 5 to 7 years old, and we want to go camping up north, and we want to take a fifth wheel with us, or we want to, haul a travel trailer and go 4 or 5 hours away. We might evaluate a diesel option, or a secondary truck that might be a diesel. So you're saying people who haul heavy, unless they're towing regularly, what do you mean by towing regularly? Like daily use, weekly use, or all day, all long? Is that what you're trying to say with a diesel?
No, so that's a great question. So let's just kind of look at it. Take the industry out, whether it's RV or whether it's trailer. So, or whether it's like a lawn care landscaping trailer. If you plan on hauling a 10,000 pound gross vehicle weight, it's the actual weight of your trailer, excessively. When I say excessively, I'm talking about, let's just give it a mileage calculator. Let's say if you plan on putting more than 500 to 1,000 miles on the truck and trailer combination into towing scenario each month, then I would definitely recommend a diesel, mainly because it's going to not only produce more torque, which I think people understand, but the components of the engine and the transmission themselves are more robust in terms of just doing it consistently. So you're putting less wear and tear on the engine. It's not challenging as much. A really good way of saying it is if you have something that's designed to have a maximum capacity of 10,000 pounds, and you're pushing it at that maximum capacity all the time, you're putting a tremendous amount of wear and tear, because you are subjecting that thing to its extreme end of its capabilities consistently. If you have a vehicle that has a 30,000 pound maximum towing capacity, and you're pulling a 15,000 pound trailer behind it, well, if that truck is designed to have tolerances up to 30,000 pounds, and you're only applying half of that to that truck, then you're not doing as much wear and tear on the engine, transmission, chassis, and components as you might be on a vehicle that you're maxing out. That's one of the reasons when I talk about half tons and I talk about being careful how much you tow, you're taking a relatively light vehicle and you're applying a lot of weight for excessive towing, and that just basically takes that vehicle, pushes it to its extreme, and is going to cause, I'm not going to say premature wear, but it's going to cause excessive wear on components that are constantly being pushed to their max.
That's good.
So if you
is that a shirt yet?
Yeah,
by
if
the way,
you look at a diesel truck.
Is that a shirt yet?
I
By
do
the
have
way,
shirts.
no, I mean,
no, I don't have a shirt on that. I need to make one.
Well, you need a hashtag half-ton towable. Remember, everybody. That's what everybody comments on your channel. Half-ton towable. You're talking about RVs, especially, and. But I want to just reiterate what you just said, because I think it's a really good nugget for my audience that, again, if you guys haven't went to JD's channel and subscribed, make sure you guys do. Check him out. Tons of great videos, tons of great playlists. But I want to just reiterate what you just said. So what you're saying is, let's say that you are pulling a skid steer, a skid loader, and I don't know, guys, let's say it's 10,000 pounds, and you have a 3/4 ton gas truck, and it's designed to pull 16,000, 17,000 pounds, whatever, and you're at 75-80% capacity on its towing. You are going to strain that vehicle more than a diesel that has the same, 30,000 towing capacity. And by pulling that same, skid loader setup on a metal trailer, it's down to 20 or 30% of its utilization. And so there's a lot of guys that, JD, like you talk about, where they buy a camper and it's a tow behind, travel trailer. It's a 30-foot something and it weighs 4,000 or 5,000 pounds or something, right? And they're like, well, they go, this is one thing that I know it's a pet peeve of yours in the RV industry is people say it's half-ton towable. And okay, so they might have that F-150 or that Chevy 1500, and let's say it can pull 6,500 pounds, and they go buy a camper that weighs 5,000 pounds. Well, they're running that camper and that truck and trailer setup at like 80 or 90% capacity, and that's kind of dangerous. Is that kind of what you're trying to say here?
Well, let me expand on that a little bit, because I think it's really important to understand the delineation between RVs and utility trailers, because there's a huge one.
Okay.
So I always get folks, anytime I make a video talking about, what you should or shouldn't tow with a half-ton truck. Of course, my channel is predominantly focused towards RVs, and I'm very, very conservative in terms of people understanding what is safe for a half-ton truck to tow.
Okay.
So what people often miss are the numerous videos I've done on the topic related to different types of trailers. Let me give you an example. So you can buy, I'll use F-150 as an example. You can buy an F-150 EcoBoost engine in it, get it with the max tow package and the trailering package, spec'd out in a configuration that it can claim from the manufacturer. It can tow up to 13,000 plus pounds. Right. I do a lot of videos on how big an 11,000 pound travel trailer is. That's almost 40 feet long, and it's roughly 12 feet tall.
Wow.
So this is a big, big trailer if you were going to hook an RV that weighs over 13,000 pounds behind a half-ton truck.
Right.
And what people generally don't understand is tongue weight. So just because I have an RV that is, let's say, 12,000 pounds or 10,000 pounds, doesn't mean that my truck, which is rated to tow over 13,000 pounds, can haul it. Well, you can move anything. The problem is how much weight is actually being applied to the back of that vehicle.
Yeah, go slow here, because my audience, we don't get to hear about all this stuff. I know you do this all day long on your channel, but this is really, really important, because I got guys buying utility trailers, enclosed trailers, and dump trailers, and just because you have a truck that you think has the capacity to tow it doesn't mean that the hitch and the receiver and the axles is able to necessarily support it. So go slow for my audience, because we're all learning, and it might be new content to my audience. So go ahead.
No worries. So you have two numbers that you really need to focus on. You have your cargo capacity, which is the actual payload the truck can physically support from a weight perspective.
Okay.
And then you have your towing capacity, and that's how heavy the trailer is that you're actually towing. And most of the time, people only look at one of those numbers. But if you look at your typical RV is going to transfer anywhere between 10 to 15% of its total weight to the back of a truck.
Okay.
Which means that if you have, let's for easy math, use a 10,000 pound trailer. If it's loaded up and that trailer weighs 10,000 pounds, specifically let's talk about an RV, and then we'll do the same example for a utility style trailer.
Okay.
If that trailer weighs 10,000 pounds and you are factoring that once loaded with all your supplies and all your clothes and your spare equipment, your jacks, all that stuff, your tools, is going to transfer 15% of that weight to the back of a truck. Well, how much weight is that?
1,500 pounds.
That's 1,500 pounds.
Yeah.
Right? Most half-ton trucks, most of them, 95% of them, aren't sold with any type of a heavy duty payload package. That used to be a term that you could get applied to some trucks in the past, where it was essentially like a heavy half ton.
Okay.
And most manufacturers don't even make those anymore unless you're getting it in a work trim package with a regular cab. But most half-ton trucks are going to have a payload capacity. If it's in its normal configuration, which is generally crew cab four-wheel drive truck, very few regular cab and very few extended cab trucks are even sold anymore. So crew cab truck in a two-wheel or four-wheel drive configuration is usually going to have a payload capacity between 1,100 pounds all the way up to about 1,900 pounds. All right, so you have a 10,000-pound trailer transferring 1,500 pounds to the back of your pickup truck. So right off the bat, most half-ton trucks will be overweight. Let's say if you have a 1,400-pound payload capacity, which is clearly visible on the door sticker threshold when you open the door of the vehicle, but let's say you have a 1,500-pound capacity on your truck, the minute you hit your trailer up, before you've thrown people in the truck, before you put a generator in the back, before you put bicycles, your quad, whatever you throw in the back, you are over capacity. Typically, capacity in terms of people and supplies in the truck account for about 900 additional pounds.
Okay.
So if you have a 10,000-pound trailer, again, we're talking about an F-150 with a 13,000-pound towing capacity. But if it only has 1,500 pounds worth of payload capacity, the trailer weighs 1,500 pounds on the back of the truck. Add 900 pounds to that, you're at 2,400 pounds.
Wow.
So now you have 2,400 pounds of payload on a truck that's designed to carry 1,500 pounds.
Wow.
Now, this is where things get sketchy. So in some cases, people will say just throw airbags on the back or throw some type of suspension enhancement on the back that raises the back up.
Right.
Well, that's not doing anything other than raising the back up and actually adding additional weight in terms of the components themselves that you've added. So if you get, let's say, an airlift airbag setup, and that airlift airbag setup weighs 100 pounds for all the components, you've added an additional 100 pounds to the weight that's resting on your truck. Now, let's dive even deeper into that. So people will say, we'll throw a weight distribution hitch on. Well, a weight distribution hitch weighs about 110 pounds. So now you're throwing additional weight on, and people are saying, well, a weight distribution hitch is removing weight from the back of the truck. Yes, it is, but it's just distributing it to the front of the truck.
Wow.
So what you've done is you removed weight from one part of the truck, but you're simply applying it to another part of the truck. So you're not, the weight doesn't magically disappear. It's simply being distributed across the trailer and the truck now. So you have some of the weight of the tongue of the trailer being transferred to the trailer, and some of it being transferred to the front of the truck, but you're not losing that weight.
Well,
that's the key to remember. It's not disappearing.
What's the outcome? I mean, are we going to crack an axle, break an axle, destroy the frame? Like, what's the worst case scenario? So these guys know, because we don't want to mess around with this stuff. We want you guys to be safe.
Yeah, so let's say best case scenario first, and then we'll say worst case. Best case scenario is you have no problem. You're driving on a non-windy day. You're not going up hills or downhill. You don't have semi-trucks passing by you. You're driving on a peaceful country road, and everything goes as planned. And you build this false sense of security thinking that that's how life is always going to treat you. But the reality is everything changes, right? I have folks that have left comments and have emailed me and said, man, I've towed my so-and-so trailer with the Tundra or with an F-150 or with the Chevy truck, for years. I've never had a problem. But then I crossed this one bridge that's known to have a lot of wind, or I got passed by this big semi-truck a little bit too close and I almost lost control of my vehicle. Or we went through this really bad windstorm and we had a crosswind the entire time, and we almost lost control. And I've even had pictures that people have sent to me of them rolling their entire rig or losing control, causing a major accident because they didn't understand the dynamics of how things change in a real world environment. And, it's one of those scenarios where you have to understand that an RV specifically changes the dynamics of everything I just talked about. Now, this is where I'll talk about a utility trailer.
Well,
so if you have
hold on one second. Let me do this really quick. I'm going to get a sip of water. We're going to hear again from our show sponsors because we got to pay the bills here, JD. You know what I'm saying? And
sure.
So I'm just having fun.
I get it.
But we want to take a quick break. My wife actually brought me a glass of water. I'm actually doing a podcasting marathon today, JD. You're my fourth one in 4.5 hours, so I'm just banging them out. But I'm like, hey, wife, can you? I was texting her while you were talking because I don't want to interrupt you because you are a plethora of knowledge, and I don't want to waste any more time either. So let's do this. Let's hear from the show sponsors, and then we're going to break things down a little bit more.
Just now, hearing Brian talk about Liz bringing him something to drink reminded me I needed to share something with all of you single guys that are listening right now. Here is Mr. Producer's test to see if the woman you're dating is marriage material. Here's the scene. You're over at her house. You're slaving away. You're working up a Mike Tyson sweat. You're making the lawn and property just look incredible. Does she bring you an ice-cold lemonade? If she does, that one's a keeper.
Battery power made by Stihl. From trimmers and mowers to chainsaws and blowers, Stihl battery tools are exactly what you need to tackle your to-do list. Whether you need to maintain your yard or completely transform your landscape. Battery power made by Stihl. Stihl is not sold at Lowe's or the Home Depot, always at a local Stihl dealer. Real Stihl. Find yours at StihlDealers.com. Lowe's and the Home Depot are trademarks of their respective companies.
This industry's largest peer-to-peer led training event is just around the corner. And if you guys are ready to bump it up a notch and lay the foundation for an incredibly successful 2021, then L'Entrepreneur Academy Live 2020 is an absolute must-attend event. L'Entrepreneur Academy Live. The fun takes place November 7th in Novi, Michigan at the Suburban Collection Showplace. This year, we have 6 amazing speakers, including Nick Carlson, Caleb and Brittany Allman, Corey Ballard, Jeff Joyner, Keith Kalfas, and Stanley Genetic. This all-day-long exclusive conference focuses on safety training, sales training, and features live panels and demos as well. You definitely don't want to miss out. Refocus, regroup, and re-engage with us this fall at L'Entrepreneur Academy Live 2020. We're so excited to host you guys in Novi, Michigan and help propel your business to the next level. Hotels and event registration information can all be found at L'EntrepreneurAcademy.com and in today's show notes. And follow along as the excitement builds with the Instagram hashtag LAL2020. See you November 7th.
This is the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. Now, here is your host, Brian Fullerton.
Awesome. Cool deal, guys. Well, hey, here's what I want to talk about next, like you were just alluding to, JD, that is if you have utility trailers or cargo trailers and you're hauling heavy, and you have more supplies, something that's a little bit different than an RV, like you were just saying. And by the way, JD, I was thinking about this little story, a couple little instances here where I don't know if you guys can relate. If you guys are listening to this, I've seen a couple times where I'm at a gas station, JD, and I see a Chevy 1500 or a Ford F-150, right? It's loaded up, and they've got a little mini excavator, right, on the back trailer, and you just see that they also have 2 yards of fill dirt in the back bed of the truck. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, like the truck is clearly squatting. There's, anywhere between 400 and 800 pounds of, fill dirt in the back of the bed. They are running a mini excavator off of a steel trailer that they, rented at Sunbelt. And they have the, little cheap $30 U-Haul hitch that they got at Menards. And so there's listen, guys, if you're listening to this for real, if you're doing this, listen to what we say next. This is going to save lives and save you guys and save you probably from tickets and damages. But again, you got these expensive excavators. You've got this metal trailer that's on a weak receiver and hitch on a 1/2-ton axle. It's just like you said, it's a can of worms that's ready to explode with problems. So go ahead, talk about how you were just alluding to the utility setup. But can you explain that whole situation, that example rig I was just talking about, like all the different problems here that we need to look at and restructure how we put this rig together?
Yeah, absolutely. So utility trailers, not so much cargo trailers, but utility trailers have a different type of profile than an RV, right? Okay. RVs are tall. RVs are wide, and they act as a wall when you're driving down the road. The best example I like to give to people is if you take this big old piece of poster board and you walk outside in a windy day, see how difficult it is to control that. And that's what an RV does on a truck. So when it comes to towing numbers, I tend to be a lot more cautious in terms of RV towing than I might be with a utility trailer. And that even goes for towing at a higher weight, where I say for a half-ton truck, or any of my recommendations, you should be at a certain weight or less. I'm factoring in how wind affects a driving wall, essentially a box that you're pulling down the road, because it's far different than how it affects a flat utility trailer, especially one that's loaded properly. With an RV, you don't have a lot of say-so where the weight rests on the axles. It might be behind the axles, in front of the axles, based on the configuration of the trailer. Where you load your supplies is all you have, the ability to adjust. On utility trailer, if you're hauling if you're hauling a skid loader, if you're hauling, equipment, pavers, whatever you're hauling, you generally have the flexibility of moving it to where you need to put it to best balance your trailer.
Sure.
So you're also not dealing with a big wall that's going to be affected by wind. And because of that, you can get much closer to the maximum towing capacity of a half-ton truck or 3/4-ton truck, because you can limit how much weight is being transferred specifically to the tongue of the vehicle. You can keep it at that 10% if you are, strategic in how you place the materials on the back of your trailer, where you position the tractor or whatever equipment you have. And because you don't have so much surface area being affected by wind, you also aren't going to be impacted by wind as much. You will still, of course, have impact from wind, but you're not going to be as impacted as much, because typically you're going to have an object that will be more centered with a lower center of gravity, and it's not going to be just a big flat continuous wall that the wind will be hitting. That's the good news. That is the good news. The bad news is exactly what you pointed out. People generally don't read the specs on hitches and other towing equipment that they use. They'll go to the store, whether it's Lowe's, whether it's Menards, wherever they go, and they'll say, hey, I need a 2 5/16 inch ball coupler for my utility trailer. And they'll throw it on there and they'll use it for everything, not realizing that the ball and the receiver and the hitch, everything has a weight rating on it. And I see lawn care landscape companies all the time, especially down here in South Texas, where they have pallets upon pallets of cinder blocks loaded on the back of a real rinky, utility trailer that they probably bought from Lowe's. And they have it hitched up behind a truck. And the hitch that they're using is, a 2-inch receiver hitch with, the typical 2 5/16 inch ball that you pick up for $15 at Lowe's. And
it's all hollow.
That is very common. Yeah, it's commonplace, because people assume that, it's steel and it's not going to fail, and, I'm only making this short trip. Not realizing that it only takes one component to fail. It's like a chain, right? One component failing can lead to disastrous results. It can lead to your trailer and skid loader or your pallet of bricks flying across an interstate into oncoming traffic. It can lead to other consequences that you have. It can lead to a tire blowout, or a spring or a suspension hanger actually breaking. Because think about this, your shackles that hold your leaf springs on your truck aren't built as robust as the receiver hitch that you're throwing in the back of your truck. So which one's likely to fail first? Right? You could have a suspension component on your vehicle fail when you're thinking, well, the only thing that could fail might be the hitch. So keeping an eye on all of this stuff, knowing that it might work 99% of the time, will probably not mean much when that 0.1% of the time it fails. Or that 1% of the time it fails.
And to be full on, just to be honest with you guys, let's paint the worst case scenario picture. I don't want to see you guys get in an accident. I don't want to see somebody get killed for something stupid because we didn't buy, a $100, solid shank, receiver and drop, versus buying the $20 one from, like you said, the big box store that has a hollow shank. And we didn't take it serious because we didn't know. But again, JD, I preach to my audience, like, don't plead ignorance. That's not going to help you in the law. And whether it's, you didn't tie your stuff down correctly, or I didn't know I was supposed to have a 5-point tie down. Well, you don't now. Like, make sure you do. And we do run a business, and there's ramifications. And if you don't do things correctly. Now, where I see a lot of the mistake, JD, in my industry, is I see maybe the new guy, but maybe the veteran too, and he just doesn't know about this stuff. So we're trying to spread the word and spread the message. But he'll have like a dump trailer on a half ton. Now a dump trailer, maybe it's a 6x12, a 7x14 tandem axle dump trailer. It might be rated to haul 10 or 14,000 pounds. But again, you look at the half ton truck and that receiver, that rear axle, it might only be rated for 9 or 10,000 pounds. And I'm making up numbers, and JD, you can stitch this all together for me. But in theory, you're like, well, I can hook this thing up to my truck because the dump trailer only weighs 4,500 pounds. And so you think that because the dump trailer only weighs 4,000 pounds, it's under that 8,000 or 9,000 pound, rating for that receiver and your hitch. Well, that's just the trailer weight. That's the dry weight. Now, if we go load 5 or 6 yards of leaves or rock or stone, now you've got, like you just said, JD, you got 9, 10, 12,000 pounds of something you're hauling on a rear axle that's only rated for half that or 2/3 of that. Is this kind of the stuff you mentioned that you see out and about in the for guys that have trucks?
Oh, absolutely. And let me give you a good example of this, because I recently did some videos at the place that built my dump trailer, and I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but it's really, really kind of sobering to see when you realize how much aggregate actually weighs.
Oh yeah.
And we were taking these trailers. They were, I got to remember, I think 14-foot long dump trailers with 4-foot sidewalls, loading them half full. When you leaned over the side of them, you're like, man, this thing isn't nearly full. You could easily throw a couple more yards or several more yards of material into the back of this.
Yep.
And then we would take them over to the scale. In a trailer that weighed 5,000 pounds, we had a gross weight of almost 30,000 pounds when we had trailers that were a little over half full.
I know. That's crazy.
That's 25,000 pounds worth of material in a trailer. People have no idea. They fill trailers up until they're full, thinking that that's what they're made for, not realizing that a dump trailer with 4-foot sidewalls is mainly made for brush or other things that might, not be as heavy. That might be a higher profile when loaded. And they'll load these things up, not realizing that they are overstressing that trailer, and they're going well over what those trailers were designed for. We took one of those trailers, and all these trailers were built to hold or to have a combined weight rating of 20,000 pounds. So these are heavy duty trailers. And we took one of them and we filled it to the top, right? Just to the top. Take a guess. How much do you think that trailer weighed? This is a 14-foot by 7-foot dump trailer.
It probably 20, 25,000 pounds. I mean, if it's stone, it depends on the material, but I like you just said, probably 20, 25,000 pounds.
It broke 50,000 pounds.
Holy crap, dude.
50,000 pounds. And when it dumped, it physically bent the rails of the trailer that were supporting the dump. It still worked.
Right.
But when you lowered it back down, it was warped. And that is what people often don't understand. Now imagine you had, and thankfully these are on gooseneck connections and they're being hauled by 450. So you had a truck that was still way over capacity, but at least it wasn't a half-ton truck on the bumper.
Right.
But that's the thing to keep in mind, guys. And this is the message, and this is the controversial message. People will listen to this and they'll evaluate what they've done and what they've been doing for decades, what they've been doing, what they've seen other people do. And they're going to be like, you know what, you're blowing this out of proportion. This doesn't happen. We've never had a failure. I've been in the industry for 25 years. It was handed down to me from my father, who was doing this since the first Great War. And we've never had an issue. And that is probably true. The fact is that it is not common for you to have a failure of a component, because manufacturers try to overbuild their components because they anticipate that people might do stuff like this. But don't be so defensive over what you've been doing just because you don't have a failure, because what will happen is you'll be so complacent to it that when you do have a failure and you find out that it puts you out of business and you lose everything that you own, that you wish that you would have taken that advice while you still had the opportunity. Like preparing for a hurricane or preparing for a storm. You don't want to prepare for it when it's there. You want to prepare for it before it happens.
Sure.
And that is exactly what it comes to when it comes to hauling trailers, when it comes to moving materials, when it comes to buying accessories for your vehicle. Understand what could potentially happen so it never happens. as opposed to taking a risk every day of my life. Nothing bad has happened yet, but wait until something bad does happen and the impact it has on you, but not just the impact on you, but your family and the other families that could be involved.
Wow.
This isn't to poke at people. It's not to say you've been doing it wrong.
Right.
It's just to give you some insight into checking what you have been doing and seeing if it's the safest possible way to do it.
Wow.
And that's really the goal of this.
Well, you guys see why I'm a big fan of JD and Big Truck, Big RV. I mean, I've watched, hundreds of your videos, honestly, bro. Cause I everything you, were talking about with your Ruby Red, 450 back in the day, this was, a couple years ago now. I was eating it up, and I'm like listening to your channel. I would watch a bunch of other YouTube channels, but I started to learn about some of this stuff, and I wanted to evaluate it, and I didn't want to let a $20 drop get in the way of me killing somebody. Like I didn't want these worst case scenarios. So I bought the bigger receiver. I bought the bigger truck. I didn't need a diesel, right, to go full circle. I knew I wasn't going to be hauling heavy. I don't do a lot of landscaping. But these are things that I wanted to evaluate and tell you. I ran a bunch of these through. You guys have heard this story 100 times. I ran a bunch of stuff through one of my friends, Mike, who has diesel dump trucks. And he's like, well, what's the capacity? What are we using this tool, right? A truck to me isn't like, whoa, heated seats and like LED lights. Like, yeah, it's cool, but to me, it's still a work tool. It's still a tool. And he was like, well, are you hauling heavy? He's like, are you going to pull heavy? What's the business model look like the next 5 years? You're going to get into landscaping. You're going to buy a tractor or a skid loader. I'm like, no, I got you, because he's one of my subcontractors and he does amazing work. And I send jobs to him when I get something that's an overflow. But one thing that was a realization that there was a real practical story is when I went with my friend Brandon and we bought his dump trailer, and he had just bought his Chevy 2500 HD, and he had took the shank out of his red Chevy 1500 and just threw it in the back of his 2500 on the hitch. Well, when we went to go buy his dump trailer, JD, which, people have seen the video and the vlog, and it was a cool time for Brandon. He buys this SureTrack 7x14 dump trailer. And as we go to hook it up, and Brandon's in doing the paperwork thing, and I'm vlogging, Mr. YouTuber. One of the guys, Brandon, came out, one of Kelly and Son's kids. They're grown adults, and he goes, "Hey, who's hauling this thing away?" And Brandon's like, "Me." And it was his gray truck, and her son goes, "Yeah, not with that receiver, or not with that shank." And we're like, what do you mean? He goes, "Dude, that's like a whatever. It was a 5,000 pound rated shank, because it was a hollow, again, little 2.5 inch drop." And we didn't know. And so, Sue is like, "Oh, well, don't you guys know how like the ratings work on the receiver and the drop, weight ratings work?" And Brandon and I, like, honestly, like, we both looked at each other, and I go, "No." And she goes, "Oh." And I'm like, "Isn't it all created the same?" And she goes, No. And so she sold us a solid metal silver shank. I don't know what brand for Brandon. Later on in life, actually just this last spring, I took some of my YouTube money and bought a Rhino hitch. It's like $450. And then I also bought a Gen Y hitch. Now they're both rated like 14,000 pounds, and like the Rhino hitch is like 16,000 pounds or something. They weigh, like, no joke. The receiver, the hitch, the drop, they weigh like 40, 50 pounds. I'm not making this up. My Gen Y, if you, like, you always know, like, JD, like, if you bust your shin on the drop, like, we all cry. If you run your knee or your shin into like either one, like, you're going to get a fractured knee, kneecap.
Oh yeah.
But again, one was, I don't know, like $200. The other one was $450. I'm going to gift one of them away eventually. I've been using the Rhino a lot because I love the adjustability of it on the fly with one pin. But that's what you're talking about. Like, we want to make sure you guys aren't overloading dump trailers. We want to make sure that you guys aren't positioning your cargo on the utility trailer where you're stacking, 3 0-turn mowers all on one side, and it's off balance, and it's going to get this shimmy on the highway. And you're going to, pray to Jesus this never happens, but roll the rig, roll the truck. And we don't want to see that stuff happen to you guys. JD, any parting thoughts or words? We're going to probably button this one up here. I feel like this is such good content. And I know you guys are like, well, who's this guy with trucks and RVs? If you've never seen his content, you guys are missing out. Go to his YouTube channel, subscribe, check him out. So much good content. If you think this hour was good on this episode, every video JD does is like this. That engineering mindset so totally comes out. It exudes through his videos, and the way he breaks it down into easily digestible content. It's why he's got a great YouTube channel with 250,000 subscribers and 4 or 5 million channel views a month. This guy knows what he's talking about. But JD, any parting thoughts on gas versus diesel or hauling heavy, and looking at these different weight ratings that you want to leave our audience while we got you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, understanding that you don't need to spend a fortune on a hitch is important. It's just more important that you understand the rating of the hitch you get.
Sure.
It's always good to have overkill when it comes to a hitch. You can spend $150 and have a really great adjustable hitch that can get you up to 16,000 pounds in terms of towing capacity.
Sure.
And hitch weight capacity, because that's also important. Also, understanding that, gas versus diesel, one great advantage that you're going to always get with gas over diesel is that it increases your payload capacity because the engine weighs less. So I pointed that out when I met up with you actually in Michigan when we were at the RV dealership, and we looked at your door sticker, and we saw because you had the 6.2 gas engine, you had like a 3,700 pound, if I'm trying to recollect that, but you had a huge payload capacity on an F-250, which if you had a diesel engine, it would have been 1,000 pounds less.
Yep.
So yeah, that's another really great reason of having a gas engine. It gives you more payload capacity in return. But yeah, at the end of the day, guys, it's really just to help you think about a topic that you probably didn't put much thought into. Just
right.
Like, Brian alluded to when they picked up the trailer and they saw that they were using, a cheap hitch inside of the back that wasn't designed to carry more than 5,000 pounds or pull more than 5,000 pounds. And believe it or not, those components will break. They will break. I have seen the ball break on hitches multiple times because it was over its capacity. That is not uncommon. That's why they always say, if you're going to tow somebody out and you have a recovery strap, you never put it around the ball, because most of the time the balls that are on there are only going to be rated to 4,000 to 6,000 pounds.
Wow.
And trailers,
trailers
are trailers, guys. When I talk about trailers and you guys look at my channel and you say, well, it's RV related. Well, RVs are some of the heaviest trailers that you can tow behind light duty pickup trucks. Light duty being anything under a class 4 vehicle, which is going to be all your dualies, all your half tons, all your 3/4 and 1 tons. But RVs are some of the heaviest things that you can tow, and they range from very light to very heavy, just like utility trailers. Utility trailers have a little bit more flexibility in terms of weight and balance, but just understanding all of this, it can be daunting, but it is worth understanding because it can keep you safe. It can keep other people on the road safe. And at the end of the day, once you're set up with the equipment you need and you're doing it the right way in a safer manner, that's the way you'll start defending it on YouTube in your comment sections when you start leaving comments. You're not going to defend the way you've been doing it. You'll defend the way you're now doing it. And I recommend that you get your situation in order to where you're as safe as possible. So you're defending how safe you're doing it as opposed to defending on how it hasn't failed yet. And that's pretty much it. I really appreciate you having me on your channel. I've been wanting to be on your podcast forever.
No, I don't know. Maybe if because we've delayed a couple months, you just brought it right now, bringing the rain. Dude, the stuff you just talked about, nobody's been talking about this for a while. I actually had a video lined up with my state police and the Waymaster. Go figure, we were going to go shoot this video in March, and then the world decided to flip upside down. And right now they're not doing anything extracurricular like that. But knowing maybe we can do another podcast, JD, if you're ever interested in being a return guest on the show. Maybe we can talk DOT numbers, axle weight, torque, man, you're such a plethora of knowledge and honestly just a breath of fresh air when talking about this stuff. And I love what you just said. Like, don't defend that it hasn't happened to you. Defend that you're overprotected, oversafe, not overkill, but you just want to make sure that, you're not running red line on, how you're hauling and what you're hauling. I think it's super good conversation. I think that's something that needs to be communicated and permeated way more through our industry because we want you guys to be safe. Right? We work hard. We want to go home to our families, and we want the people around us to also be able to go home to their families. And this is the stuff that I take serious. I mean, safety. I talk about it all the time on my channel until I beat a dead horse with safety goggles and glasses, hearing protection, long SPF shirts, boots, all that mess. but it's also our vehicles too, and JD, I just the other day I did a video. I had a flat tire, and it was basically balding out. I noticed that the other 3 were getting pretty bald. I just changed those the other day. Preventative maintenance, what's the old one? I'll probably mess it up, but an ounce of prevention beats a pound of cure. And we want to make sure that we're just being smart when we're out there with our trucks and trailer setups in our businesses. So,
Brian, it's funny, Brian, real quick. The last comment is, it's so funny that oftentimes the number one defending that I do on my comment section is from folks who think that they're fine the way that they're doing it. And it's crazy that I almost feel like I have to protect and defend the folks who are doing it safe from folks who believe that they don't need to do it any different than they've been doing it. It's just interesting.
No, you know what, guys? Well, if you've heard this far in, we're going to charge you with you're no longer a civilian. You're no longer a bystander. You're no longer part of the people that don't know. Now we need you guys to help perpetuate this message of making sure we're all safe, man. And so now you're a veteran on this topic. And so go out there, look at the door jams, look at your weight ratings. Go flag down a Waymaster and say, hey, I want to run my trailer setup the most safest way possible. These aren't people to necessarily like avoid in the name of you don't want to get tickets, but the reason you get tickets or you get in trouble is because you're, let's just be honest, guys, we got to own up. We're not doing things correctly. And so I always say police officers don't give you a ticket. Like, you give yourself a ticket because you were being ignorant, and let's not be ignorant. I mean, we're business owners. You don't get to be an ignorant business owner. Now, if you go drive for somebody else and you want to play that card, God bless you. But for me and my family, like, I don't want $500 tickets. I don't want to have, things that break down. Time is money. And, we're running red line as we are half the time with all of us running crazy, workloads and demanding schedules. Let's make sure that the easy stuff we can take care of by just paying attention to it. So, JD, wow, this has been a good one for me. I got a lot out of it. The stuff that you're talking about is great. Can we get you on the show again? Maybe a couple months, we'll recharge, and maybe you can share a little bit more with these guys about some other fun topics.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Awesome, dude. Oh, I love it. All right, let's sign off with this. Where can people find you? I know we talked about YouTube channel, but where can people find you if they want to learn a little bit more about what you bring to the table?
Sure. So yeah, I have a YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/Big Truck Big RV, or if you just do a YouTube search for Big Truck Big RV, I'll pop up. I think I'm the only one. And on Instagram as well under BTB RV. So you should be able to find me there. I'm still trying to grow my Instagram following to compete against Brian, but man, he's killing it out there in the Instagram world. And then I have a Facebook channel, which is also Big Truck RV.
Awesome, dude. Absolutely. Well, guys, go if you're listening to this, whether it's right now, look down at your phone. Don't forget to follow him on Instagram. But later tonight, go to his YouTube channel and just start snooping around. He's got how many videos you got on YouTube? Probably 1,000 on campers and trucks.
Over 1,000. I stopped counting after 1,000.
Amen to that. I got like 600-700, and I look back on it, I go, where did we find the time, right? Amen. But one thing I got to say publicly to you while I got you on the mic is thank you again for inviting me to hang out with you in person at Terrytown RV. That was such a blast for me. We got to look at it was like 40 or 80,000 square foot indoors, enclosed warehouse space, looking at campers and RVs. And you were working. You were brought up. Somebody had paid for you to come on up and shoot some videos. And I don't want to be in your way, but you had hinted that you'd be in Michigan, and it was about 2 hours away. And I said, dude, you're 2 hours away. Normally you're 22 hours away. I'm like, can I come over, grab lunch with you and hang out with you? And you said yes. And that was really precious time for me, getting to hang out with you, talk YouTube, talk trucks and RVs. So thanks again for inviting me over to that trip about, what was that, last year, maybe 9 months ago? So
Yeah, it was a while back. We got to do it again, man, because you're always a blast to hang out with. Had fun at the Detroit Auto Show. Had fun at Terrytown. We got to do it again. Amen,
dude. Well, we'll button that up. We'll lock it down. And I know when you hijacked my channel, did those 4 videos from the NIAS last year, people really love that. And they're like, JD with big truck, big RV? And I said, yeah. And they go, what does he look like? And I said, I ain't telling, because you keep things pretty anonymous, which is awesome, dude. So nobody knows what the real JD looks like, and but I do. And for $2 million,
actually, I tell people all the time. Everyone who's met me knows what I look like.
Yeah, sure. Well, if you guys watch JD's channel, you'll notice a little different theme is that every time the camera's pointed away from him, and JD, he's a big safety and security guy. He's got young kids, and so I don't blame him, to be honest with you. But so like I said, JD, you're still secret safe with me. Nobody ever knows. And you did a once over on me when we were at the auto show, because you're like, yeah, I'm in the audience, and I'm like, where are you at? And then all of a sudden I feel this big like bear paw on my back shoulder, and I'm like, who is that? Like, who's touching me? And you're like, what's up, dude? It's JD. And I'm like, oh my God. I thought, you got these images of who you think people look like. And it was a curveball, which was in a good way. It was pretty funny, actually. And I think that's one of your fun games you get to play doing YouTube, right? So, all right, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Well, cool deal with JD. Thanks again. For real, I try to sign off with this every time, that it's not lip service. Thank you for taking time out of your Sunday afternoon to pour into my audience. We appreciate it big time. And, I don't take it for granted. So thank you again for being on the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me on, my friend.
You bet, brother. All right. Well, hey, guys, if you enjoyed this show, definitely share it with another lawn care guy, another lawn bros, anybody who's in the trucking and trailers, and help spread the word, get this content out there. We really do appreciate that. And if you guys haven't left those all important 5-star ratings and reviews, leave us a couple sentence comment, especially if you're on Apple iTunes, and let us know how we're doing, and let JD know that you guys really appreciate him and his content. But we'll sign off with this, guys. That's another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. We can't wait to catch up with you guys on the next one.
In the words of the great Steve Miller Band, time just keeps on slipping into the future. I was cranking that one earlier today and made a mental note that time really is running out on getting the whole Ball of Wax program at the insane price Brian is offering it at of $499. Are you kidding me? Now, you not only get all current training courses, but all the brand new ones that are dropping in October, and every new one that Brian cranks out to infinity and beyond. The window to grab it all forever at this price is closing fast, so slide on over to LawntrepreneurAcademy.com, LawntrepreneurAcademy.com. Go there right now, click the store tab in the upper left-hand corner, or if you're on a mobile device, just touch the hamburger icon in the right-hand corner to access the menu. And as soon as these words left my mouth, I can hear all you young Turks saying, okay, boomer, we know how to navigate the interwebs. It's the whole Ball of Wax. It's the best investment that you're going to make this fall. I hope you'll do it. Thanks for hanging out with us today, and look for another fun episode coming soon.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast with Brian Fullerton. We hope you enjoyed this production. If so, please consider leaving us a 5-star review for the show. While the techniques and ideas presented here are designed to help you grow a more successful and profitable business, no one can guarantee these results for you. We want to emphasize that entrepreneurship is not easy, and the ideas presented here are just the opinions of Brian Fullerton and his respective guests. No one can guarantee success for you. That being said, we hope the ideas presented here help you and motivate you to go on out there and crush it with your own business.
Fullerton Unfiltered Podcast.
Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode.